What up, what up? WINBUSH here. Today I'm excited to show you guys a new technique that I have for bringing your dynamics from Cinema 4D into Unreal Engine 4. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Okay, so we're going to get started in Cinema 4D here. If you click on a link above me, it will link you to one of the tutorials that I previously did. And so the way that I did that one was we built an object in Cinema 4D, we made it editable, we baked a bunch of keyframes on the animation there, and then we brought that into Unreal. But in this one, I'm going to show you that we can keep it non-destructive. Like I can make my item, I can put it into a Veroni fracture, I can have that shatter and not have to make it editable at all. And all we're going to do is bake out the animation and we can bring that directly into Unreal. So let's get started with Cinema 4D here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my scene set up. So I'm just going to make this HD, so we'll do 1080. I guess instead of 29, we'll do 60 frames per second. And then down here in my lower right, I'm going to change this frame rate to 60 frames per second. And then we'll make this about 400 frames in the timeline. And I'm going to leave it at standard because Unreal Engine takes standard Cinema 4D materials. And so from here, I'm actually going to, let's make a ground plane. So I'm just going to use a cube. Bring this down a little bit. And let's stretch this out a bunch. Let's say somewhere around there. Okay, so let's do like 1200 by 1200. That should be large enough. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring a rock in from Megascans and have the shatter here. I mean, you can use whatever you want here, but I like using Megascans assets since I have access to them. And one caveat is if you have an Epic Unreal account, then you get access to this entire library for free. So all you have to do is link your Unreal account to your Quixel account and you have access to everything in the Megascans library. And so I downloaded this one earlier. It's called Small Rock. So I'm just going to go to my export settings. I'm gonna do an LOD1, just we have these different LOD assets here. If I do 0, it might be too high poly, so I usually go about 1. And then I'm gonna do texture format at JPEG, resolution at 4K, export to Cinema 4D, and just click export here. And then we see exporting to Cinema 4D, exported successful. So I'm gonna close this down. If I look into my scene, I can see I have my rock here. And I'm going to come up here to my upper right hand corner, come down to coordinates, and let's just make this rock really large. Somewhere around there. So now we have this huge rock. Maybe let's bring it down to 20 by 20 by 20. I'm probably going to have to make my ground a little bit larger. So let's say 2000 by 2000. Because what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have this rock fall against the ground here and then shatter. And I'm not going to build out, like I'm going to build out a little scene, but I'm not going to build everything in Cinema 4D. I just want to build out the animations that I want to bring over to Unreal so that we're not going to have like a large import time when it comes to importing the scene. So what I'm going to start with is come up to mode graph, come down to Veroni fracture. I'm going to drag my rock into there. As soon as I do that, you're going to see that it's going to break it up into all different separate parts. So down here in my lower right hand corner, I'm going to go down to sources, go to point generator distribution, and I'm just going to bring this up to, let's say like 200. So that just breaks it up into even more tiny chunks here. And then on my, let's see where it's at. It's under selections. There we go. So I'm going to make a selection for outside faces. I'm going to make a selection for inside faces, and that way I can have different materials on the outside and the inside, and I'll show you exactly what I mean now. So if you come up here to our hierarchy window, you see these triangles here. These are our selection tags. So if I click on this first one, this is the inside faces. If I click on this last one, this is outside faces. So what I'm going to do is click on the material that's on my rock here, and then under selection, I'm going to just click and drag the triangle under here. And now this is my selection for my outside faces. So if I hit the render key, you can see that we have a rock rendered out right there. But let me add some dynamics so we can actually split this apart and I can show you guys what it would look like on the inside. So if I come over here to simulation tag, we're going to go to rigid body. And then for my cube, same thing. We're going to come down to simulation tags and we're going to make a collider body. And now if I, actually, let me make my material first. So I'm going to hold down Control, left click, drag over, make another material here. In this one, actually, let's turn off reflectance on both of these because Unreal doesn't really recognize the Cinema 4D reflectance that well. So I'll turn them off on there. And I'm going to add a luminance. And I'm just going to change it to like a cool color, maybe like a purplish, something like that. And then we can also bring our normals over. So I'm going to click on normal. Let me go back to my Megascans library, open up the folder here. And this brings me to the folder that has all these other assets that go along with it. And I have normal maps here. So I'm just going to click and drag a normal map into here. So now I have normals on there. And I'm going to do the same thing for my outside materials. Bring some normal map into here as well. Like so. And then I'm going to click and drag my neon rock part over here. Then I'm going to click and drag this under selection. And now let me come over and select my dynamics tag here. Then I'm going to come over to cache and I'm going to hit bake all. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to put include collision data. So I have all these check mark here. I'm going to hit bake all. And you can see now that it's baking our dynamic simulation and it's going pretty fast here. It should only take a few moments. But once this is done and I click play, then the rock is going to fall and it's going to spread out across our floor here. So now that we're done, let me click play. Boom. You can see we have a rock spread out across the ground here. And if I actually hit the render key, you can see that the inside of the rock is purple. And the reason that I added the luminance key is because in Unreal, I can actually take control of the luminance and have it have like this cool neon glowing effect. And so I think everything here looks pretty decent for our collide here. So what I'm going to do now is let me save this project. I'm going to save it as a regular file first so I have access to my regular Cinema 4D project in case I ever want to come here again and change anything up. So I'm just going to name this one Dynamics C4D. Oops, C4D like so. And click save. So now I have my, I guess you could call it like my hero file if I ever want to come in and make changes or anything like that. And so now what we want to do is we need to save it out for Cineware, and that way we can bring it into Unreal. So same thing, go up to File, come down to Save Project for Cineware, and I'm just going to name this one Dynamics _ UE4. And the reason I like doing that is because even though we're saving out for Cineware, it still makes a .c4d file. And so just to keep them separated, I know that the one that has _UE4, that one is the file that I can use for Unreal. So I'll click save here. And then let's just check the folder. And once it pops up in here, then that means it's done. There we go. So if we just kind of look at the file sizes, if I click on my original C4D file, you can see it's close to 100 megabytes. But usually when you save it out for Cineware, it will sometimes double it. And so that's something to think about as well, because I know the main thing a lot of people have been hitting me up is like they'll say, oh, I have this whole scene built in Cinema 4D and I want to bring it into Unreal and it's not working. And it's kind of like you have to think about it strategically. Like whenever someone's making a game, they usually don't build out like a whole scene in Cinema or Maya or whatever and then drag the whole thing over. It's kind of like you build your pieces out and then you bring those pieces into Unreal and you assemble everything in Unreal. And so it is possible to bring like a whole scene from Cinema into Unreal, but with the caveat that your scene's going to probably be pretty large and it's probably going to take a little bit of time to import. And so the way that I like to work is I kind of block my scene out in Cinema, get everything down that I want, and then bring those over as in their own separate projects. And so enough of me ranting here. Let me, I'm going to get Unreal opened up and then I'll catch you guys and show you guys how to finish this off. Okay, so I have Unreal open right now. I went to my Epic Scam launcher. So from here, you can just go to Launch Unreal. Give us a second to load up, and it's going to give us a few options on how we want to proceed, in which I wanted to give you guys a lowdown. This is the latest version, 4.24, and when you open it up, you're going to have a screen here. They added these recently for like architectural design and engineering. They have a section here for film and TV, and then automotive. I still use the game function here, because if you click on film and TV, there's a little error that's been popping up lately asking you to download a plugin, and even if you do download it, it's still not really opening. So that's something that I've reported to Epic. Hopefully they update that soon. And so for now, we're just going to go to games, click next, and then click blank. And from here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave everything at default for right now, except for I'm going to change my folder location to somewhere here. And I'm going to name this project C4D Dynamics. Yeah, you can't use spaces when you're naming your stuff in Unreal, so you just use underscores. So C4D underscore Dynamics, create project. All right, so we have our blank scene set up here. First thing I'm going to do is come up to settings, come down to plugins, and then in here I'm going to type in C4D, and then you'll see that it says Datasmith C4D importer. I'm just going to click enable here. And if you want to know how to permanently have this enabled, I also did a video on that as well, so I'll leave a link down in the description, or you can click up above to see exactly how you do that. You just have to go into a text document, tell it to permanently enable this plugin, and then you'll be good to go every time you open up Unreal. But if this is your first time opening up Unreal, this is how you set it up to be able to import Cinema 4D files. So we come down to here where it says restart plugin now. I'm going to click on this. And then when it opens back up, we should have a file for the Datasmith plugin. Okay, so we have Unreal open back up here. You can see now up here we have a Datasmith plugin. So if I click on this and then find where I put my Cinema 4D file. So we want to click on the one that says underscore UE4, because that's how we named it. So I'm going to click open on this, and then I'm just going to click OK. It's asking me what folder I want to import everything to. I'm just going to use the default content folder here. And then here as well, I'm just going to keep everything checkmark. I leave everything at default here. I'm going to click import and then give it a few moments, and this should bring everything into our scene in Unreal. It's going to bring in our materials. It's going to bring in the animations, and I'll show you guys how you can get that all set up as well. Okay, cool. So everything's in here now. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the stuff that came in at default. So let me come over here to my hierarchy window. I'm going to just fold up this right here where it says Dynamics underscore UE4. That's the file format that we brought in from Cinema. Actually, if I open this up, you can kind of see it brought in everything from Cinema 4D, and it made each fracture into its own individual file here. So let me click this back up, and I want to delete the stuff that comes in Unreal. So I'm going to delete the floor, the light source. Click yes here. I'm going to delete the sky sphere, the skylight, the reflection. I'm basically just going to leave everything blank and come in at default. And I could probably even get rid of this cube here. And this is the cube that we made in Cinema 4D. I'm going to delete that as well, because I'm going to bring in my own floor plane here. And so let me play this out for you first so you guys can see the animation happening. So even though we deleted the floor plane there, all we did was bring in the animation into Unreal. And so it's still going to play out. See, we still have our animation play out there. And the way that I got to my animations was inside my content folder, go to Dynamics UE4, and then there's an animation folder. And you just double click on this, and this is called the level sequencer, which is kind of like an NLE built into Unreal Engine. So you can even bring in like cameras and have different camera angles and everything happening in there. But that's for another tutorial. But for now, we're just going to show how it plays. You can even play it in reverse here. So what I want to do now is I'm going to bring in another floor from Quixel Bridge, aka Megascans. I have this one here called Mossy Bark, so I'm going to bring this into Unreal. So I'm going to do 4K, LOD1, FBX, JPEG. Make sure you have export to Unreal selected. Then I'm going to just click export and wait for this to send over. Okay, so it says exported successfully. Okay, so we have everything imported now. As soon as it's done importing, you'll see that down here it says, or it has everything listed out that's associated with this file. So all I'm going to do is take the 3D file, just drag it in here, and then over here my details panel, I'm just going to zero out my location like so. And then let's make this scale a little bit larger. So let's try 10 by 10 by 10 first. Something like that. Oops, now I'm going to rotate it. There you go, something like that. Actually, probably make it a little bit larger. So make it 15. Let me go to my animation and just play it out, see what it looks like. So play this here. Cool. That can actually bring down this a little bit, just so it looks like it's actually hitting the ground plane here. There you go, something like that maybe. Have it go into the ground a little bit. So something like that. Cool. Alright, and so what I want to do now is I'm going to go over to my lights. I'm just going to add a point light in here. Somewhere like that. And then I'm going to come up to and hit build lighting. Alright, cool. So my lighting is done being built. So what I did was I went up to build, went over here to lighting, and you hit build lighting. So whenever you bring in your lights, it will build the lighting according to your scene that's there. So this is something that's for another tutorial, but we have here, if you just click on one of your objects, this kind of associates with your lighting. And so if you have non-moving objects, you make static, and you can actually bake like your lighting, so it's all baked into the scene. Or you can make it movable, so if your object is moving, then it's going to try to keep up with that in real time. But that's like a whole lesson in itself, how to get that all set up. But the one thing that I wanted to show you guys here was the inside, how I said before that we could control like the neon lights that's in there. So let me scroll this over a little bit. You can see that the lighting kind of went down accordingly. So if I come over to my dynamics folder, let me come over to materials, double click on that, and then that purple rock here, I'm gonna double click on this. And then over here in the lower right hand side, you'll see there's a tab that says emissive color. So I'm going to bring up the strength that's right above it, the glow strength. And let's start with like 10. And then click save. And then go back to our scene. You can see that the light is glowing a little bit more here. Let me see if it looks like at 20. Drag this over, click save. Probably even bring my light down here a little bit as well. Oh, not too far down. Okay, so I was fooling around with the lighting a little bit. I forgot that it does this thing because it's a game engine. It does this thing called auto exposure. So like if you're playing a game and you're in the building, then you walk out of the building, the way your eyes adjust to the sun, it's exposure into the light. And so Unreal kind of replicates that, which can get a little annoying sometimes, especially when we're trying to just work on our lighting here. And so one way to get around that is if I come over to visual effects, come to post-process and volume, bring that into my scene. I'm just going to drag and drop, and then I like zeroing everything out on the location. So I zeroed everything out here, and then if I come up into this little search window here and just click unbound, check mark this on, and that way our post-processing is unbound by the box. It's going to take over our entire scene. So anything that we do here in post-processing is going to affect everything. And so what I want to do now is I'm just going to type in EXP, look for exposure. And so I have my exposure settings down here. I'm going to click on min brightness and max brightness, and I'm going to make both of these 1. Cool. And then come over to my lighting here. And I can bring this back up maybe to like 3. Something like that, and that way my lighting is going to stay the same no matter what. So now when I click play, my lighting stays the same. We're not getting that weird exposure thing, and we could just have our scene play through. So that's just kind of a quick breakdown on the update for how to bring in like your dynamics into Unreal, something that I figured out when I was at the Maxon office, just kind of playing around there. And so, yeah. So hopefully this helped you guys out. You know, this is a new technique that I came up with when I was over at Maxon. We were kind of fooling around with Cinema 4D and Unreal, and we found out that you can actually just bake your animations from Cinema 4D into Unreal. No need to make it an editable poly anymore. So if this did help you out, make sure you leave me a comment down below. Subscribe to the channel, and until next time, keep creating. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.